now. We go to the mind is nothing but a false description of what is. A false description of isness. And we go to it. That is the addiction, to go to it for the truth, as if it is there. We feel like we'll be lost without this narration of what anything means or what is going on. But actually we are only lost with them when we take them to be true. Like, what's happening here? What is this? Where will you go for that answer? Or what's happening to you? Where will you go for that answer? What's happening to you? Huh? Would you go to your feelings? Would you go towards body sensation? Are they also in themselves saying that this is happening to me? It is only this narrator, mental narrative. This is happening, this is good, this is bad. There should be more of this and less of that. This is better, this is worse. This is the loss of innocence.
Do we not have to be really careful though that we don't go into like some avoidance where we're kind of so much in that, trying to claim that we just in denial of what's occurring.
Yes. This is very good talking.
I'm not saying it's not true.
Yes.
Like I feel the truth in it, but I also feel like there's a risk as well in a way, because I've seen it myself where I've just basically been telling myself like this isn't happening.
It is just the replacing of one concept with another concept. If it is just sort of an Advaita denial which is just conceptual, then of course it is just like an avoidance. Just an avoidance.
So
but I feel like we must look at this very carefully. Like the terms like spiritual bypassing and avoidance, it's very much possible and part of this spiritual game. But what can happen sometimes is that, let's look at a term like spiritual bypassing. Okay? Now, it depends on what we take to be true and what we take to be false, isn't it? In Vedanta it is said that everything that comes and goes, it is false, it is not true. So if that is the benchmark of truth, in that context, what is spiritual bypassing?
I don't really understand that word, to be honest.
No, in the sense that how that word is used is that a lot of these masters, these new Advaitins, as we are sometimes called, sometimes the traditional Vedantins will say that, but in this new Advaita, which I don't feel like I'm new Advaita at all, but they can be this sort of, they call basically Bhagwan and his disciples and everything that has come from that lineage to be like new Advaitins in a derogatory way. Now, but they themselves say that they are traditional Vedantins. Now, the number one rule of Vedanta, or the number one prescription or direction in Vedanta is that everything that comes and goes is not real. Reality is that which does not come and go. So, Nitya Anitya Viveka, which is the ability to distinguish between that which is true and that which is false. And what is the benchmark of true and false? What is the benchmark between true and false? There actually, in reality, there is none. But in Vedanta, it is prescribed. No? Something has to be prescribed initially. So it is prescribed that you take everything that comes and goes to be Maya, to be illusory, not real. That means not without any, or actually without any substance. So that is the Vedantic prescription. Everything that comes and goes is not real. So the mind is only speaking about that which is coming and going. What can it really say about that which does not come and go, except in terms of negation, unchanging, undying, unborn. You see, so that's why in Vedanta it is prescribed the neti neti. I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. Because we are applying a standard of truth which is very, very high in a certain way, which is that we take everything that is coming and going to be not true. You see? So when this neti neti is done, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. It is so that we look beyond all that is changing and see that, come to this intuitive insight about that which is the unchanging. You see, once this insight comes about that which is the unchanging, then even the distinction between changing and unchanging is no longer there, isn't it? When you come to this recognition of the self as awareness, then awareness is not making any distinction between the manifest and the unmanifest. All these were just pointings in the intellect to give us some clarity to be able to come to the recognition. You see? So at the end there is no distinction between manifest, unmanifest, saguna and nirguna. You see? Now what has happened is that somehow, maybe because the traditional Vedantins don't necessarily like that what they've been taking like 20 years to study in scriptures and go through stuff, then there are these people like this Ananta who sitting there and saying click, click, maybe something like that, or for whatever reason they're saying that this can't be. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. You have to go through all the years of practice and all the study of scriptures and all of this to come to this unchanging self. So, and then because we are saying neti neti, which is a very Vedantic, very traditionally Vedantic practice actually, which is that whatever the layer of existence may be, this worldly appearance, I am not that. This body, I am not that. These emotions, I am not that. You see, and even ultimately, this sense of being also is a coming and going. I am not even that. Now, many will say that the neti neti, or the negation of these layers, not that they are not appearing, but to not take them to be reality, and especially not take them to be my reality, is a sort of a spiritual bypassing. And it's a very attractive term because it sounds scientific. Any term that sounds scientific can have a lot of seeming truth attached to it. But what is it actually? It is just that you are coming to a recognition of that which is beyond all of these changing layers of existence. And in that recognition, you see, it is not that that distinction continues to happen. No, I'm not this. It is just that from that place, let's call it provisionally, every aspect of our existence is fully welcomed, non-resistive, unresistive. So this idea that this new age sort of Advaita Vedanta is sort of an avoidance of what is just not true. Because it is more coming to in fact a defenseless openness and meeting things exactly as they are. Now what is happening is that those ones who are saying, but we must admit that we are human after all at the end of the day. You see, we must admit that I feel unworthy and I feel guilty and I feel proud and I feel all of these things. You see, and to give them a reality, you see, or to not give them reality is sort of an avoidance or a bypassing. Many will feel that way. You see, now, but that's not what we are saying at all. What we are saying is that you meet everything as it is, but the mental terms or the intellectual terms used to define these things are too much of a broad generalization, and in fact they are an avoidance to a true meeting. You see, like I often share this where I said that somebody is coming towards you. The minute you label that one American or German, you see, you've already restricted or limited the way in which you're meeting that one. You see? So if I say I'm meeting a Britisher, you see, and you're just walking towards me, and I'm like, British stiff upper lip and a dry sense of humor and all this kind of thing which I've already presumed based on some phenomenal evidence, isn't it? So that is how we use the terms like guilt, unworthiness, pride. All of these are very broad generalization. What might be appearing is much more fresh. You see? So the invitation here is to just look at these, to just be open to everything that is arising, but don't say that that is my reality. You see? That is my reality. You see? It is, don't identify with anything at all. You see? If possible, and if you have to identify with something, then identify only with that which is unchanging. You see, that is the whole Vedantic premise, isn't it? So what is happening is that I would say, in my eyes, actually, when something is arising, and if we label it as something, that is an avoidance of a full meeting. Like if I was going to meet you, you see, then I'll be fully open to what you have to say, what you're actually having to convey, rather than put you in the box of, but you're British, you see, and then seeing you with that lens. So that is more limiting than just open, just to be open and empty is a full meeting and an absence of avoidance, actually, you see. But what happens is that because that can mentally translate into, I am not the sufferer, you see, I am not really suffering from all of this, then these kind of terms can seem like it is some sort of an avoidance.
So the question when you said like, did you say what's happening to me?
Yeah.
That was like
yeah. Where will you go for that answer?
Well, that's a different question from like, what am I experiencing? Or
even for that, where will you go for the answer?
Your experience.
Your experience, no? And not your mental narrative about what's happening to you. That's it.
But also like, I don't know what I'm saying.
So then, okay, so that is the primary. Where will we go for that answer? The second is that there are two parts, isn't it? What is happening in a way can also be translated in Vedantic terms as to what is appearing now. You see? And what is appearing now, we look to the quality of our perception or whatever is being perceived. You see? Now, when we say what is happening to me, you see, that has a completely different connotation then. What is arising? You see, what is perceived as arising, and then when we say what is happening to me, you see, which me will we refer to? You see, and if we go to the mental narrative, it is always selling the story of a me. You see, it is limited, which is exactly the opposite of the Vedantic construct. You see, which is that it is limited. It is. It's like Krishna said, yourself cannot be cut, it cannot be burnt, it cannot be harmed in any way. You see, that which is real does not come and go. You see, and the unreal never ever happened in the first place. You see? Now, from this perspective, although we can say that this appearance seems to have this quality, pain, pleasure, you see, white, black, up, down, all of these things. You see, from the perspective of what we found ourselves to be, you see, does the appearance, I mean, we use the term appearance just because it is different from the term reality. Right? What does the term appearance imply compared to reality? That it disappears, you see, and that
disappears.
So therefore disappears, because everything that appears then disappears. You see? So, but what I am fundamentally saying is that you decide what should be the standard of truth. You see, if you don't accept the Vedantic standard, you say, why should I say that only that which remains unchanging is true? You see, then you could define another standard, you see, and say, okay, I feel like everything that appears is true. I'm absolutely fine with that. If you say everything that appears is true, you see, I'm still asking you whether in your mental narrative that truth is accurately presented. Is it? With me? Even if you say, I can repeat. So the Vedantic standard of truth is that everything that changes, everything that comes and goes is untrue. You see? But I am saying to you that suppose you were to apply your own standard, and suppose your own standard is very different from this Vedantic standard. You say everything that comes and goes is also true. Everything is true.
Well, can I just rewind for a second? Like, because I think psychologically, the story that like came with a lot of my restlessness was actually like, this can't be happening.
Yes.
You know, like when I really looked into it, it was a denial of my experience. And so I suppose like I didn't mean to say like what you're saying wasn't true. I'm just meaning to sort of express that like, for me at least, in my own looking and exploring, that kind of Advaitic position of this isn't happening became like prime ground for my ego to go like, good, that means I can just kind of like deny this. And although the nature of like any experience or any suffering, like you were saying, is ultimately just a story, sometimes it's a really familiar story, and sometimes, I don't know, can you say it's one experience is stronger than another? I don't know actually, now I'm looking at it, but like there's something in that feels at the time maybe like it is. And so when a really strong experience would come, which just means one that there's a huge aversion to, basically, it was like I actually got more available to that experience by kind of like consciously saying yes to it and just kind of opening to it that way. I think that was really what I was trying to convey. It was just like, I don't know, something still contracts when I hear that, like, and yet in that experience of opening, there's also the possibility to deny the experience in truth, to say like, for example, to see like, okay, this isn't a permanent experience, like it's fluctuating. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course it does. So that's, in a way, that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. So the idea of avoidance is that why do we take to be untrue, which seems to be something which seems to be a very valid experience, no? And it is the idea is that it is just a sort of an Advaita avoidance, by saying no, actually we are feeling somewhere that it is real and it is true, but we are trying to conceptually say no, it's not happening to me. It's really not like an almost like an ostrich, you see, just avoiding. So that's why I'm saying that suppose we don't look at that as a standard and we say that every experience, you see, let's say that every experience, whatever is being perceived is actually true, you see, is actually true. And even if that is the case, that we take every experience to be the true, we are not avoiding anything or doing neti to anything at all. Where will we go for that report on what is happening, which is true?
Report on what is happening, the report is true or what's happening is true.
Where will we go to determine what is actually happening?
Okay.
You see, even if we take it to be true.
And when you say what's happening,
because we're saying now that every experience, every appearance, even if it's ephemeral, you see, let's take that to be true. Let's not say it's not real, which is the Vedantic neti standard. Let's say it is real. Then, if it is real, then what will truly capture or encapsulate what is actually happening? Where will we go for that conclusion?
Well, it's not about encapsulating it, it's just like any experience is as real as any other experience. I feel like that's the catch, is where suddenly, like, when say loads of fear comes, we're going like, oh, this isn't happening, but then like when ice cream comes, it's like there's no prerogative to say like this isn't real. So, but as long as every experience is as totally, utterly real as any other experience, it seems like it's the same knowing.
Exactly. So I would say that even in this case, the mental representation of even what is appearing, you see, does not do a good job. Like I take this example, if I was to say, like, let's take what's happening in this room to be real, because this is appearing, you see. So let's not say this is going to pass, so this is not real. Let's say this is a valid experience, a valid perception, they are real, you see. Now, if we go to the mind and say, what is happening in this room now? What will the mind say? And if it was able to represent the truth, then every representation of the mind should be the same, that this is what's happening in this room now, you see. But none of the representations seem to actually capture even what is actually being perceived, you see. So I would say that if we are not applying the Vedantic standard of truth, and we say that seems like an avoidance, and that is to deny what is so apparently real for me, you see, I would say, okay, then rely on pure perception. You see, rely on pure perception and not your interpretation of what the perception is. You see, and you know what happens? When you rely on pure perception, you come to the same insight about yourself, and the same openness that come with niti come with the full openness to this world. It is only the midway where we get stuck. Where we get stuck either way with the mental representation of either Brahman, which is the seeming product of the niti, or the mental representation in our surrender or openness or allowing, whatever we may call it. You see, because it is always this narrative which is painting a picture of yourself and the world which is not true. You see, so if you go inside, you see, sometimes it can feel like niti is very oppressive. You see, you have to be denying, not this. So I say, rather than saying not this, you can say and also. You see, like
Sarvam Khalvedam Brahman.
Okay, so agreed. But I'm saying, suppose that seems like it is too much of a denial of the world and its appearance. We can say, okay, this is here, and also what else? You see, and also what else? Because the mind will trick you into saying, okay, don't avoid, you see, but don't actually look also. You see, just take my presumptions of what I'm saying to be true. You see, take my definitions of what is being said to be true. You see, so what happens is we get into this strange sort of cloud of just ignorance, where we're neither looking, and now we really you see, neither looking this way nor looking that way, just thinking. So whether we go niti, you see, and we come to this, which is beyond coming and going, which in itself makes no distinction between anything at all. You see, therefore we come to a full openness of everything, or we go this way, which is allowing. You include everything into yourself. You see, allow for everything. You see, then you will find that whether we like it or not, whatever the mind's labels for that would be, that once I've included every single perception, you see, once I've included every single perception, and I've said that you are here, I love you, I include you. You see, then even after that inclusion, we're not done with the entire inclusion, because we've still left the elephant in the room out, which is that which witnesses all of this. You see, and once you include that which witnesses all of this in a great inclusion, then you will see that the same openness, the same non-resistance, the same clarity, the same truth, which came as a result of saying, I am not this, I am not this. You see? So we go this way fully, or we go that way fully. You see? It is this midway stopping that happens with the mind which gets us into trouble. You see? And it is only mind which is avoidance. You see? It is only mind which is avoidance. You see? Because even in your representation of what is phenomenally, even if you want to take it really, if you represent it just mentally, it will be very, very limited.
Sorry,
it will be very, very limited.
If what?
If you take even if you take the world to be real, you see, but you're relying on your mental representation of what is rather than your pure perception, it will still be very limited.
Yeah, and like when you really go into any experience, really fully.
Yeah.
There's no room to think about it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It's actually really helpful for you to clarify that. So
it's very good, because what happens is that the sages who came to this recognition with neti, you see, by looking at what is it which is beyond all this, that's the true presentation. There's a true perspective. Let's look beyond what is just phenomenal. You see, but they are not in avoidance of any phenomenon. You see, in fact, they may be seeing phenomena much more clearly after that. You see, so that same thing. And if you go outwards also, you see, so these are called two paths in Indian spirituality. The Nivritti path, which is the one that goes inside, not this, what am I really, not this, what am I really. Nivritti path, and the Pravritti path, which is the outward and inclusive and including everything. You see? But whichever path appeals to us, we must take, but go fully in that. You see? What happens when you start including, don't forget to include the space. You see? Don't forget to include everything that is perceived. You see? And then once you included everything that is perceived, you see, don't forget to include that which is witnessing all of this perception. You see? And as you include that which is witnessing all of this perception, then you will see that all the constructs which we have, you see, just including up and down and yesterday and tomorrow, they just fall apart. You see, they just fall apart.
I don't even know how to include that, but yet something inside me says like yes, you know. That.
In a way, very simply put, don't forget to include yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
You may include the entire world and every perception in it, you see, but don't forget to include yourself.
But you can't include yourself in the same way you've included all
perceptions. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But does that mean that we should be in denial of ourselves? No. Just two. No, I'm just saying the opposite, like how the so-called Neo-Advaitins are being attacked. I can say, but why you forget to include yourself? You see, you're giving reality to this feeling, you're worshipping it, calling it guilt, you're giving reality to this feeling, almost like idol worship, calling it pride. You see, you do all of that, but where is the idol to yourself? You see, why you forget to include yourself? You see? And then you realize, like just like you said, but I can't include it the same way. Because I can't include it the same way because it's not perceivable. You see, and just because it is not perceivable, should we deny it then? Is that not some sort of denial? Is it not some sort of avoidance? In fact, that is the greatest avoidance. You see, just to include a phenomenal aspect and not include the non-phenomenal is also is the greatest avoidance. So it's a very beautiful topic actually. I don't mind publishing one day a small booklet about this because it's a very sort of contentious topic in today's world, and there's a lot of confusion and argument about it. You are in avoidance. Why don't you admit that you're feeling frustration? Yes, but do I really know it? Do I, by putting it in the box that it is frustration, I'm meeting it more fully or less fully?
I hope I didn't come across as like the voice of...
No, not at all,
yeah.
not at all.
I
But
didn't mean like
but the
negation
not
to
at all.
non-duality,
Not at
but
all.
I just...
Not at all, my dear.
No.
It's completely received with the true feeling that you had in your heart. But I just use that as an opportunity to clarify the. You see? So either this way fully, or this way fully. You see, but not going fully either way is an avoidance. For me, that is avoidance. You see, I have never experienced the same thing twice. And not in this world, you see, not in this body, not in my emotional layer, if you can call it that. You see, that's why I'm not so much a fan of making these broad generalizations about this is what this is. I would rather meet it fresh and fully rather than say, oh, this is British feeling, this is American, this is. You see? But that's what we do with our labels.
Jaya Govinda, Jaya Govinda.